Hey everybody, turn this AC down. Got this light on, I don't know if I need it. That still looks good. It's the early evening here in Nashville. It's 7:36 my time, which means we've just recently passed the embargo on the Infinity War reviews, literally within the last hour, I think. I just got out of the movie. I wandered around the mall for a minute, hoping to maybe find a place at the mall. Usually when I do these previews, by the time the movie's over, the mall's pretty much closed, and there's really not even any place to sit down or anything. Unfortunately, even though this preview was earlier, we started at about 4 o'clock Nashville time, Central Standard Time. By the time I got out, the mall's still open, but the mall is also a cacophonous, riotous, chromatic environment that just is not a good place to sit down and have a quiet chat about a loud movie, a big loud movie. This movie, what was the quote I gave to our friend with the media? Well, there's always somebody we meet to talk about the film with afterwards, and there was a number of people at this event, but I think it was pretty much a media only thing. I got here I think a little bit earlier than some, and I sat right down in the second row, so I didn't actually see how many people were there. But I did see several people from, the same media people that I see at all these events. And usually it would have been more packed if it was, a whole public event. So I think it was pretty much a media only thing. And starting at 4 o'clock too is sort of another indicator. The other ones where it's like the media is there, but then there's also a whole public audience, that have gotten passes or any number of other things, won something on the radio, whatever, however they got a hold of the tickets. It's usually a packed house, and usually it's at a normal movie time, 7 o'clock or something like that. Tonight, again, this one started at 4, which I'm grateful for, also partly because it is a long movie. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes ish. I'm not even sure of the official running time. But it's a long movie. I won't say that it feels long, but it's you're not surprised that it's long. It's a long movie. Part of it is the scope of the film also feels just so massive. I mean, you're literally all over the universe in this movie, and it's not really the first Marvel movie to do that to you, but I don't know that there's ever been one that's done it to this degree. It is a cosmic comic book film of the highest order. It is as psychedelic, if not more psychedelic, than Doctor Strange was. It's in many ways, obviously, many people will know that in this is sort of the culmination of the Marvel cinematic universe. I don't mean that it's the end of it by any means. Lord knows with the success they've had, there's certainly no end in sight. But it really does feel like from Iron Man 1, this is where we've been heading, and in many ways, Infinity Wars is the Empire Strikes Back of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a weird thing to talk about comic book films because so many people who enjoy the films enjoy the comics as well. You don't have to be reading, all of the comics that these various movies are based on to enjoy the films. But if you have, if you haven't kept up on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I mean, really, honestly, if it would behoove you to see every Marvel film up to this point before you see this movie. I don't think somebody who hasn't seen any Marvel movies can come into this movie and really keep up. I really don't think it's almost not possible. And if you have gaps in your movie watching, they'll be evident, frankly, because this movie is definitely, meant to sort of pull all these other films together. So it's almost a hard movie to talk about on its own because it's so specific to and dependent upon the movies that have come before it. I'm not gonna say that you have to see all the Marvel movies. I'm gonna say that if you have seen all the Marvel movies, it'll be to your benefit by the time this chapter opens. It's an amazing movie in many ways. It's also not only just as the actual sort of the culmination of all these storylines that have led to this point. Again, from the first Iron Man movie till now, through the Avengers films, through the new Spider-Man movie, through Black Panther. It's the evolution of all those storylines now as they all intersect, and sort of result in this sort of cosmic standoff. There's really no other way to talk about it. It's certainly cosmic. It throws back to the first Avengers film. It throws back to so many aspects in the other films that have come before it. But not only just as the actual movies with the actual stories and the actual heroes are all coming together, but in many ways you can feel the actual films themselves coming together, in the sense that this movie brings some of the tone of Ragnarok with it. You know what I mean? The sequences with Thor sort of benefit from the lessons that we learned in the actual filmmaking of Ragnarok. And the idea that Thor movies work best when they embrace the sort of absurdity of the whole Asgardian thing. You know what I mean? Let's just let this be as silly as it actually seems, and then we can really get away with it, and so it's not, the Thor sequences in this film aren't as zany as the Ragnarok stuff, to their benefit. By the way, I thought Ragnarok went kind of too far. Although I appreciated what it was doing, I thought it overstepped a bit. I think it went too far in that direction. Maybe it needed to, so that in this film they could pull it back just a little bit. And I'm pulling back away from the camera. The camera can't tell where I am anymore. I'm going to turn this light on now. This feels like I'm being interrogated. But this movie, it benefits from the understanding that the Ragnarok Thor film taught us about how to make a good Thor film. So in this one, you sort of have a good Thor film in the middle of it, right? In the sense that there's, the entire, not everybody, but nearly every hero that we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is present and accounted for here. And they're all sort of off doing their own thing, and this is part of the reason why you have this cosmic scope going on, because we're literally jumping from planet to planet, to city on Earth, back into the cosmos, back into some mythical dimension. Okay, now back to London or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's all over the place, partly because in this sort of culminating story, you've got everybody sort of fighting on all these different fronts. Trying to keep Thanos from getting his hands on all the Infinity Stones, right? So the Infinity Stones have been introduced throughout all the storylines in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If there's not a direct storyline about them, then there's references to them, and there's the idea that there's this larger story arc happening in every single one of these films, So essentially, you've got Thanos, who's like the baddest bad guy in the whole world, and he's trying to get hold of these Infinity Stones that literally are sort of the elements that power the not only the physical universe as we know it, but things like time and things like wisdom and things like reality. And every stone, I'm not going to be able to name each stone correctly, but each stone sort of rules an aspect of the entire thing. The thing we dare not speak, the name we cannot speak, the thing, whatever this is that we're in. And if we were in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then it's really about that, you know what I mean? It's really about, trying to be, it's the classic bad guy, trying to rule the world, but this, ruling it, ruling the multiverse, ruling the everything, the heaven and hell and everything else. He's the uber bad guy, and he's trying to do the uber bad thing, and they're trying to stop him. So it's a pretty simple tale when it's all said and done, but it's spiced up a lot because of the fact that we're not just talking about good and evil. We're talking about specific iterations, and these are the iterations that we've grown up with in Marvel comic books, and that we've grown up with in the Marvel cinematic universe. Captain America, Chris Evans is back as Captain America, and really, for me, the Captain America movies are the high point of the films. My favorite one is probably Winter Soldier. I've said that before. When I did my Black Panther review, I talked about Winter Soldier and how that movie really connected directly to Winter Soldier and was much like Winter Soldier in many ways. This movie's not like Winter Soldier. This movie's more like more like an Avengers film. It's more like an Avengers film. Like all the Avengers films have been rather epic and rather cosmic, but this one's the penultimate version of that, and probably the best version of that. When it comes to the more sci-fi aspects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the more mythological, like Thor and Loki and all that stuff, for me, all that stuff is a weak spot. I like Captain America. I like the Black Panther. I like the stuff that's sort of bound to reality enough that I can sort of watch a comic book movie. Spider-Man, I love Spider-Man. You know what I mean? I love Batman. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of scale I want. I want street crime and superheroes. That's kind of about as much as I want to handle. Maybe some international intrigue if we have to go to the point of battling, the Hand or whatever it might be, whoever you might be fighting. But who's the bad guy in the Daredevil, Kingpin, that kind of shit like that. Daredevil, I fucking love it. Punisher, love it. Right? So that's really what I'm more into right now in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the TV series that have come from Marvel. And/or I named Batman too. So, it's like, give me a great Batman, sort of like street crime story. I'll watch it right now, But that said, I understand that we're in a different realm here, and I like a lot of where this went. I like the fact that they knew how to deal with Thor and Asgard and all that stuff. And I think it helped with all of it, because so much of what you're getting into with Thanos and everything like that is you're getting into this, again, cosmic, mythological. You're dealing with, creation myth and stuff. I mean, we're literally talking about the Big Bang and shit like this, right? So if we're going to get into that sort of, quantum and quantum realities and interstellar, travel through dimensional gateways and shit like this. If we're going to get into all that, then it's like we have to do it right. You know what I mean? It's got to actually pull that off, and as we know from science fiction films, it's not always easy. You can't just dress it up like space and have it really come off, This movie does a lot of interesting things. It references other science fiction films in a really cool, fun way. It brings humor and a certain amount of zaniness to the Thor storyline. I think they do a smart thing by pairing up Thor through a lot of the film with the Guardians from the Galaxy world. That's a nice match. It's a really good match for those two, to sort of put them together and let them work off each other. It really works well. They put Iron Man together with Spider-Man again, because they've got such great chemistry in the other films, and they have it here again. Captain America and his rivalry with Iron Man is here again, and so the thing that's mostly working here in this movie is really the fact that they've mostly made this work in all these other movies. In a lot of ways, it almost feels like this this might have been kind of an easy movie to make because they already had so many great pieces to stick together. The good news is it doesn't feel that modular. It doesn't just feel like, dialogue, characters tying up loose ends from other films, and then, action piece, set piece action. This one's in the jungle. This one will be in the deep of space. This one will be in some mythic wonderland. Instead of doing that, it really feels more like a real film and a whole movie, and with actual characters. I mean, just like Marvel's been able to do this whole time. We could have a week of videos talking about what Marvel has done right and what DC has done wrong in terms of those equations. But one thing Marvel has definitely done is they've created an amazing cinematic approximation of what makes their comic books great. Their comic books are great because their characters are human. They're people, and they've got troubles, and you either have to be kind of a troubled person to be a superhero, or you're going to be kind of a troubled person if you are willing to accept the responsibility that comes with great power, the great responsibility that comes with great power. And they've been able to do that for their universe, you know what I mean? And that's been astounding to me. It's been astounding to me to watch those Marvel movies pretty much one after another just be really good. You know what I mean? Again, some I like better than others. Some I had to like better than others just based on what I like about the Marvel universe in general. But really, I mean, in a really Baruva run of films, and I mean, just a fucking, 100% fucking, knockout job of just, sort of making a plan to make I don't even know how many movies it's been, but make all these movies and to sort of have enough vision to know where you're going, and enough energy and the ability to, just every level of the machine it takes to sort of plan all of that, from the arc of this whole massive story to just the managing the production of something like that, and managing it sort of on the run. Can you imagine sort of like you're 3 movies out and you haven't even released the first film yet? You don't even know if you're going to make any money on this thing, but you're spending money on these other films already. And just even just managing the planning around budgets and things like that must have been a massive fucking undertaking, let alone the actual making of these movies, the writing of these films, and keeping it consistently strong movie to movie to movie. When the DC movies recently have shown us how hard it is just to get one of those movies right. I do believe they got Wonder Woman right, but unfortunately for that franchise and/or I think it's telling me that I'm live again, so hopefully that's the case. I see that I had a couple of viewers. I had a couple anyway. At this point, it doesn't look like I have any left. Anyway, sorry if I lost you. I was rambling anyway, so that was like probably the cinematic gods telling me, wrap this thing up. Let's get to the point. So the point is this: it's a fucking great movie. It's beautiful. It's kind of perfect in a way. There's a few moments that I kind of like in my mind's eye, I'm like, ooh, I would edit that differently, or I would change that line, or something, just because there's a few moments of like sentimentality and things like that are really hard to do right in these superhero films. They're hard to do right anyway, but they're extra hard when everybody's dressed in a ridiculous costume. And there's a few moments where it's sort of like, less than perfect, but it's hard to say this movie's much more than that. And I want to say also too, this movie is incredibly brave. It's incredibly brave to end the movie the way they do in this film. It reminds me a bit of how I felt when I left another movie that I keep on raving about this movie, the Star Wars Rogue One. So if you know what I think about Rogue One, they just turned some lights on here, so I'm going to do this. If you think about Rogue One and how that movie ended and the brave filmmaking that went into allowing that movie to end the way it did, you'll have a sense of what I'm talking about with this story. So I don't want to say a whole lot more than that. I really am a big believer in keeping these spoilers to a minimum, and I hope I'm always doing that. Anyway, so you guys go check out the movie. I would love to have the same conversation that we had about Black Panther when you have a chance to see this one, or as you're getting ready to see it. It's only Tuesday. I think the movie might open on Thursday in most places, so we got a couple of days. So if you have any questions about the film, again, I'm not going to be too eager to spoil anything for anybody, but if there are more specific questions, feel free to ask them. I mean, I'm not really commenting on all the actors and all the characters and everything else that much. I mean, generally speaking, you know who those people are. You know that they've mostly been interesting, engaging characters, featuring very strong performances by most of these actors. I mean, they've done a great job, and they're still doing it, and most of the same people are there with them doing it. There's some fun surprises in this. One thing I will say, the last thing I'll say, is that it reminds me, it's a little bit, and you'll know this going into the film, it's why you're going to the movie, is that it's a little bit like Ready Player One, in the sense that Ready Player One, had the novelty of just this cascade of pop cultural references and characters and settings and nomenclature and all this kind of stuff. And that was a big part of the sort of the fun of Ready Player One. And that was real. And Spielberg did a good job of making it more than just that, not unsurprisingly. But in this movie, of course, it's not a surprise that we know that we're going to this film, because we do want to see all these characters together on the screen at the same time. And it is thrilling, and it is interesting, and there are surprises. At least there were to me. I didn't do a whole lot of research going into this, so I wasn't like searching for like the secret fucking Easter eggs before I see the movie. I'd rather see the movie and enjoy anything that's weird. I don't want to hear every rumor about it. And there were some very fun surprises. I was very excited for some of the surprises in this film. I mean, it was very satisfying to see loose ends from other movies finally, get tied up and make sense again. It was good to have the Hulk back with everybody else. It was really a fun movie. I guess one of the only things you might say is that, because it is a movie with all these people in it, we don't get to spend a whole lot of time with just any one hero. You know what I mean? And that might be a bit annoying. I mean, especially if you don't really give a shit about Vision. But we're going to spend a significant amount of time with Vision because he literally has an Infinity Stone in his head. So there's things like that. I mean, I would have loved to have just had it be, again, just let's have it be another Captain America film, and let's mostly stick with that crew. Those are my favorites, but all in all, they do a great job. And I guess, sort of the benefit of a movie like this is because there are so many people, even if there are certain characters that you're not as invested in as others, their scenes come and go very quickly, and then you're on to somebody that you're probably more interested in. So it's very fun in that way. And it reminds me too, I mean, this is why they're doing this, but it reminds me of when I was a kid and you'd get that special issue of the comic where suddenly it's like, whoa, this other team showed up and they're going to team up in this comic, or, this, all of a sudden you realize that, oh shit, the bad guy in this comic is the bad guy from that, who fought that other guy in his run of comics a year ago or whatever, So everybody loves when the, the various, stories sort of blend together, and it's very fun to see Spider-Man meet Doctor Strange. It's a really good scene, a very funny scene. And you realize that, Doctor Strange doesn't know who the fuck Spider-Man is, and it's like, but Tony does, you know what I mean? And Tony's not really getting along with Doctor Strange because they're both egomaniacs, you know what I mean? So it's really fun to have them interact. And again, it's fucking easy. They can do it easy because they've already got Tony Stark down. They know who he is. They know how he is. They've got Robert Downey there playing him, and he knows better than anyone. And it's, I mean, this movie is a slam dunk in a lot of ways, in the sense of, it's a emphatic, definitive film that just says, bam, the Marvel comic cinematic universe, it's saying, like, here's what this whole thing has built up to, and fucking smash it, man, hard, right? But it's also a slam dunk in the sense that, you can't think of an easier shot in basketball than the one where you just stuff the ball in the hole. People almost never miss slam dunks, and this is a slam dunk because all this whole thing has just led right up to that fucking rim, and it's just like over the head, jumping, boom, backboard smashing, fucking lights go out. They make it look easy, and it's great. I mean, it's a great epic movie. It feels like an important movie in a way that comic book movies often can't. I think comic book movies have, and I think they do, and I think they especially do in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it's not easy even for them, and this movie definitely feels important. I mean, it feels important like the Lord of the Rings feels important. I mean, it feels like an epic opera, man. A cosmic comic opera, and like I say, in many ways, it's a brave movie because it reminds me of movies like Rogue One and like Empire Strikes Back, and those are very brave movies too. Yeah, so definitely you're going to want to see this movie. Thank you for watching. I see there's a couple people checking it out. Please definitely comment, because I want to try to have the kind of conversation we had like we did when I reviewed Black Panther. So here we are with another Marvel movie, and it's a marvelous movie as well. I still haven't come up with a cool grading system, so let's talk about that again. If you guys have a unique way for me to rate these movies, like, share your ideas with me. But anyway, yeah, so 2 thumbs up, 5 stars, 6 bags of popcorn for this latest Marvel film. And I'll look forward to your comments, and have a good evening, everybody.